Dominic Scaffidi, welcome to Unbroken.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. I've never spoken to you one-on-one, so this will be fun. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got interested in the three principles?
Oh, yeah, I've been a coach, self-employed as a coach, executive coach. Mostly I deal with leaders and organizations like that. And I've been self-employed for about 15 years. Prior to that, it was a corporate career that I had, very large organizations. And the last corporate role that I held was a VP of HR position. And so that's kind of a bit of that. And and my career has continually moved to more and more a reflection of what I'm interested in, my passion. So that kind of relates to the three principles in that uh, my purpose in life, I say, is to awaken greatness. Maybe you could say it as to reveal greatness, to reveal what's within us. And so that's kind of a link to what appealed to me about the three principles. Maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I came across the principles and the teachings of Sydney Banks, and they immediately resonated as, this is true. This is, pure truth. What he was pointing to. It was just obvious. It was obvious that this is just true. And so I became really interested in delving into that, into really that understanding, which is a deeper understanding of who I really am, my true nature, and the nature of reality. And of course, in my coaching, this is what it is when I'm working with people, and it's really about helping us to look more deeply into who we really are, our true nature, and the nature of reality. The more we come to see and understand that, the more I'm going to say all problems disappear. Um,
Mm.
I mean, that's just the way it is.
Oh, I love that. And so, a follow-up question then, do you remember how you came across the three principles?
Yes, I'm a student of many teachings, and one teaching in particular are the teachings of Abraham Hicks. So Abraham Hicks, I was a follower for many years, and that teaching focuses very similarly on we are consciousness and energy, like so. It's very similar, and I like to say that from that teaching, and it teaches the law of attraction. I say that I attracted the three principles, and so and why I attracted them was because it was necessary to my misunderstanding of the teachings of Abraham Hicks. So
Mm.
it had been incredibly useful for me. It had much of my understanding had contributed enormously to my own thriving professionally, to my business. I mean, I built my business following a corporate career in a way that I would say is effortless. I never participated in business development and trying to get business because around the beginning of my self-employment, I had come across Abraham Hicks and I realized, wow, this is, I mean, would be crazy if it worked, but this would be if you could simply be in that state that is resonant with what you want. What you want must come to you. And that just didn't sound very corporate or real. and, but it works. And so then it actually works. It's actually what happens because it's an accurate description of how everything we experience comes to us. So it was very impactful. And then there came some point where I needed to go further than this to see it more deeply. And there were many misunderstandings I had of what was being taught. And the thing about the three principles, you'll agree, is it is so rigorous. It is so rigorous. It is so even simple things like, well, you don't need any practices. so rigorous, right? Is like, well, there's nothing to do. It's all about an understanding. And that part I didn't understand or hear as clearly with Abraham Hicks. Although after I come across the principles, I would go back and say, oh my God, they were saying the same thing. That they've
Mm.
been saying the same thing. I couldn't hear it. I was interpreting it in my own way. And so following the principles, it sort of cleared up where I was a bit off around all this. And it just took it much deeper. So I say I attracted it. And the way I attracted it is I think I was on YouTube listening to some Abraham Hicks stuff. And then what pops up is Michael Neal and the TED Talk, right? That why aren't we awesomer? And I'm like, who is this guy? And what is this? and, and then I just became intrigued on what's he talking about. I've never heard of Sydney Banks. And that, of course, is the rabbit hole that then I
Yeah.
went down. And when once you get a bit of a taste of that, it's like, wow, this is true. This is powerful. Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, that's so great. And a couple things I want to ask then too. Are there any places where you see that the law of attraction and the principles don't agree? Have you ever encountered that?
Yeah, they disagree or are in conflict in my misunderstanding of one or the other teacher,
Mm.
one or the other teaching. Anywhere I misunderstand what Sid was saying, I will see a conflict with Abraham Hicks. And anywhere I misunderstand what Abraham Hicks is saying is conflicting with my understanding of Sydney Banks,
Mm.
just as it does with teachings of non-duality, just as it does with any other teaching. So all conflict is not inherent in what the teaching is pointing to. Every conflict reveals my own misunderstanding of one teaching or the other. So where you see a conflict, it's a beautiful thing, and look in the mirror and see what it
Mm.
is that you misunderstand. These teachings, what they point to, are not to what is right or wrong about anything, because what they teach is beyond what is right or wrong, is to the essence of what is expressed. So they are expressed in words, and words are interpreted. And where you interpret incorrectly, then you will arise in conflict. And then you will see, wow, that one is wrong. Well, it is wrong according to your misunderstanding. Absolutely, it is. Right? And so you might want to clear that up.
Right. And so when that happens, what do you do? Or what have
Well,
you done?
so what I've learned to do, because it was interesting, because when I came across the principles, I wanted to talk about what I saw was the same. I wanted to talk about different ways that, and quite frankly, in the three principles communities, it was more of a reaction of, oh no, you don't need all that. Well, I'm not looking for what I need. I'm looking to understand something. And so, but you don't need that. This is all you need. But I don't need any of it. What each of it will do is deepen my understanding. All teachings are simply a story, right? But what's valuable about them is what's actually true, that the essence from which they come. So most people were, because eventually I came across lots of people in the three principles communities who had been following Abraham Hicks or followed other teachings. And in almost every case, every one of them had said, oh, I used to follow that until I discovered this, and then this is right, that's wrong. And I noticed this as a pattern with most people within 3P. Oh, I used to do NLP. Then I realized that was all wrong. And now I do this. Oh, I used to follow this other thing, and now I follow this. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you come across this thing and you take a vote, and you take a vote and you say, this one is better. And that one's obviously wrong. And I toss it aside and I now go forward with this. Um, and I almost went that way.
Mm.
And I almost did, because I'm kind of like, wait a minute, but this one's so obviously true. And I'm not sure why, but somewhere in the middle of it, I'm like, but I keep going back to listen here. I keep going, but what's that about? Because why would you go back and listen if it doesn't resonate as true? And I keep going back to listen. And the more I listen, the more I'm like, yeah, this is true. And then I notice something curious. I notice, wow, in fact, this is saying the same thing as what Sid is saying. I never heard that in this teaching before. I always thought this was saying this other thing, right? And so that what I discovered out of this is that if you can sit in a paradox or a bit of a dilemma of this seems contradictory to me, oh well, I guess I'm missing something, and just leave it alone, right? Over time, what happened is I'd suddenly go, oh my God, I think I know what they're saying. And all of a sudden, something would pop up and you'd go, oh, that's what this means. And so you would see something deeper. But if if you're there and you kind of go, oh, well, that's obviously wrong and this is right, you walk away with more reinforcement of your own thinking and no insight, right? So somehow, by luck, I ended up more doing that than I went the other way in terms of, who's right, who's wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I love that because it for me, and I was in your Living Miraculously course earlier this year, folding the two together uh is such an interesting way to explore these things, these truths about us. And um it kind of brings more questions to mind, but more opportunity for exploration as well is what I
Mhm.
enjoy about it for sure.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
confluence, yeah. You said something earlier that I wanted. Oh, yeah. So when you were talking, I want to circle back to when you talked about um, starting your self-employment journey. And um, in a recent newsletter, you had this quote that thriving does not depend on action and effort. It relies on allowing. And it sounds like you were sort of pointing toward that when you mentioned earlier about starting your business. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah. There is no plant, no tree, no animal, no human being that grows, comes alive, blossoms, thrives by their effort. Their energy is not required.
Mm.
So there's something about that. And if you quiet down and notice, you're not growing yourself. No child is growing themselves. If you look at a plant, it doesn't clock in, work all day, and then clock out and rest for a while, using its own effort to try to keep getting bigger, taller, bring fruit out, flowers, whatever. So the truth is that your thriving is effortless. It's effortless. It's by grace. It, it, it. So there's a difference, though, between a human being and an animal and a plant. And an animal is only allowing, mostly allowing. A plant is certainly completely allowing, but an animal is pretty much allowing. And what happens is, just like us, that consciousness is an expression of all that is, a unique expression of all that is, expressing, blossoming into this expression, unique expression of itself. And the thing with that is this consciousness, which is an infinite intelligence, all knowing, basically expresses through any form, expressing more of itself uniquely. In the animal, there's no resistance. Would you take an animal like a bird, and what a bird will do is, as the weather changes, it will fly south. And but the thing is, it flies south, no map, with no one teaching it, no Google to like decide, like to learn that this is what you're supposed to do, right? It's a nudging that moves it. And and not one of these birds turns around and says, why the hell should I fly south? When you look at these bears that just sleep and hibernate all year like that, and I'm expected to go thousands of miles, and not one of them says that. No resistance to it. They simply allow this intelligence, which is only for their own well-being, only for their thriving, to move them. And anything else, like you look, like they'll be building a nest, they'll come back, then they'll build a nest. And again, no, without schools that teach them how to do this, just an infinite intelligence that is knowing of what's needed and how it is. And somehow they find what they need, and it's different in different environments, but none of that matters because they're guided. Now, what we call that with animals is, yeah, they're following an instinct. It's an instinct. That instinct is wisdom. That instinct is intelligence. And it's an intelligence that brings their well-being, assuredness, and thriving. Human beings have the same thing. We're just a bit of a different imagined creature, right? And us as an imagined creature, just not being religious here, I'm just from a more spiritual perspective, is we are made in the image, imagination. We are an image, a reflection of the Creator. And what that is I'm going to say is we are a truer reflection of the Creator. And a truer reflection is we are made as creators. Now that's a bit of a difference, because although a bird, or you take a beaver who builds a dam or something, and like that, a bird building a nest. See, the thing with them is they've been building the same nest thousands of years, the same dam thousands of years. But you and I live in homes that look nothing like a home that we would have built thousands of years ago. Looks nothing like it. And what that is we were given a different gift of freedom of thought. We have freedom of thought. We are free thinkers. And the minute you bring that about, you bring about enormous possibility. And that enormous possibility is for the possibility of greater expansion and creation. You literally can bring what never was before, right? Made in the image of the Creator, and a further expression. And we are as creators. And so that also beautiful possibility is our greatest trouble. Freedom of thought. I can think anything, right? Including I'm able to think against myself. I, unlike a bird or an animal, I can literally resist the guidance, intuition, and wisdom that comes. I don't need to listen to that. That's not the boss of me. I make my own decisions. And I am free to move as I wish, including against myself. That is pure freedom. You are so free you can choose bondage. That's what freedom is. Complete pure freedom. There is nothing off limits to us. We can be or do or have anything. we are limited by our own thinking only.
Oh, that's great. I love that. What a great explanation. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Um, so speaking of being or doing or having anything, let's segue into you recently made a new purchase of a home, and
Yes.
I'd love to know your favorite lessons from that experience. And maybe tell the audience a little bit of the background, as much as you're willing to
Yeah,
share.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, this home thing was one of the greatest lessons. You know, we can be all theoretical about you can be or do or have anything, you can create what you want and blah, 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 until the reality hits, right? And so we, you know, we've been in a home for 28 years, we loved it. And eventually it came a point where you say, are we gonna just are we living here forever, or do we buy something else? Like, are we gonna live somewhere else? But for many, many years, we had all kinds of, like, you know, I was in a home office, and if you look out the window, there's a brick wall, and I'd always dreamed of, oh, it would just be so nice to look out, and then there'd be nature, right? And and just a view and light and all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's all dreams for a while, right? And but then there came a point where it was really my wife said, "Are we just like gonna just talk about this all the time, or is that something we're interested in?" Right? So that kind of kicked off something. And
Mm,
but so anyway, again, by law of attraction, we that moved to a more open, allowing state. Right? There were many, many reasons why, well, no, not now, and that takes a while, and it's hard to find something, and all the thinking that it poses. Because, by the way, to manifest anything, and just to be clear, what is manifestation? You're not manifesting anything. You are allowing yourself to perceive what already exists. So when you say that you manifest something, right? A more accurate description. Like, you're not manifesting something out of thin air. All that is already is. So what you're doing is it's by your own focus that you experience anything. So all possibilities are available, they're there. And so say you manifest something, you're simply tuning or focusing toward what you want, toward what the desire is. And you're not like bringing something in out of thin air. You are allowing the energy in the direction of the desire to form into the desire. That would be manifestation. It's nothing you're doing, it's you're allowing that, instead of, right, if you kind of look at, um not by will or determination, I could only notice that my mind was wanting or desiring something that felt better than this. Now, some people would say to you, yeah, you shouldn't go in that direction. You should just be content where you are. But I think I started this by saying we loved our home of 28 years. Beautiful home. Raised a family in it. Loved everything about it. That was a dream home for us. We were so lucky to have had the home we were in. Very content in the home. And from a place of contentment, it is a very allowing state. You can allow expansion. From a place of dissatisfaction or discontentment, you are in a resistance state. You are pushing against what's wrong with the damn place, that I can't stand living here anymore. And if anything were to come out of that state, it would be another place you would hate,
mm,
because it would just match, right?
mhm.
So when you're somewhere and a desire coming through, then really when I look back, what I was doing was resisting. Like, well, but we're really good here and things are all okay. And yeah, well, but that's going to take a while. It's not easy to find what we're looking for. So every statement you make or every thought, just distancing between your desire and its experience. You could say, Abraham Hicks says, to when you desire something and you expect it, it is. When you want something and you expect it, it is. So it's instant. This is kind of how God, you look at the creator, we're made in the image of the creator. This is how God creates. Let there be light, and light is in the instant it is thought. So it's manifested in the instant it is thought. Sydney Banks gave an interesting, he points to divine thought. And I used to think divine thought was reserved, like, ooh, that's like a big deal, right? That's divine thought, right? Until I thought about it a little more, divine thought, it is pure thought. And what it occurred to me was divine thought is unopposed thought.
Mm.
God thinks a thought and doesn't oppose it in the next thought. God doesn't oppose its own thinking.
Mm.
We're a little different. So I would love that. But that's going to take a while to have. In the very next thought,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes an opposition to it.
Yeah.
This home thing was like that and kind of stretched out. Anyway, at some point, and it was months ago, we started the search. There was a bit of a disappointment in everything we were seeing, and so we were feeling terrible. And at some point, my wife and I agreed, and we said, look, let's just promise each other that we will not move unless we feel the way we felt when we bought this house. So when we know what that feeling is, and if we feel that feeling, that's when we'll move. And so just after that agreement, which followed a huge disappointment of, searching and kind of thinking, I think this is a mistake. What are we doing? We're going to end up hating, right? So we just after that, suddenly this house shows up, right?
Mm.
So it's almost like, so then, we get this, we were in Hawaii actually, and it was like a beautiful, and suddenly we get this agent send us a video and they say, you know what? We know this is over budget, but, but it has so much of what you're asking for. My wife and I were waiting to check in, to the hotel, and we're by a pool, and we watched this video and we were silent because we watched this video and we just knew this is our house. And we're like, wow, I can't believe it exists, right? And I can't believe it exists where it is. And which is just a few kilometers from where we're living now. And we have family here and stuff. And we really wanted to sort of stick around. But there was so much to it that was a challenge to my beliefs,
Mm.
including the money.
Mm.
This was not the plan. The plan was different. It was downsizing. It was like it was a whole other plan. This is not what I was thinking. This is not what was comfortable. This is not what was predictable. This is not. But here's the conflict I ran into. I was like, but I cannot deny the feeling.
Mm.
I mean, how do you deny the feeling? So anyway, we were there and we were like, our comment to each other was like, gosh, I hope we get a chance to see it, because we might not. By the time we get back, it's going to be like 10 days or whatever the place could sell. I hope we get a chance to see it. We write the agents, we say we would like to see it, right? And so we come back, and within a day, we like, get this me, let's get me over there. I want to see it. The minute we walk onto the property, it was like, we're not even inside the house, but walked on. It was like, oh my God, this is our place, right? This is our property. This is our home. And so that happened. And then all the beliefs, the problems. Wow, how is that supposed to work? How would you do this? Like, what the stresses of all that stuff come crashing in, like really beyond belief, right? It's what it was. And in that moment, like I was just, I don't know, there was a lot that I learned, like a lot that I questioned. I thought, how could it be that this feeling is so clear and true, and yet it's not? Like, how can that possibly be? Like, how could you have this feeling and yet it's not the right place? It's out of reach. It's not correct. It's like I was a bit disappointed.
Mhm.
And also from a law of attraction perspective, to get a perfect match, except you made a mistake on part of it. Like, what kind of law is this? How could this be? You can't bring something and have it be a match and then have it be off like that. So then I thought, well, maybe it's not the law of attraction that's off. It could be something else is off here. Right? And so that's when I kind of looked more to me
Right.
than that. And so in that journey, I started to see, and was obvious, yeah, I am off. I'm off in so many ways, and all of them are my own thinking.
Mm.
And the question is, do I want to insist on my thinking? Do I want to insist on what I know? Do I want to insist on how it's supposed to be, how things are, and not be open to new thinking and new seeing? And all of that was interesting to me. Now, I love that I understood from my understanding of 3P, because this was the most important thing. From what Sydney Banks said, it was clear to me, um, and my wife, it was very clear to me that, do you know, life is going to be great with or without this house.
Mm.
Like, I'm not making that up. I know for sure, right? So I see this home and it's a beautiful match. And honestly and frankly, whether or not we ever live in it, life is going to be great, because life is not dependent on any of this. So that part was what a relief that is, right? So now there was zero attachment. It's not needed for anything. I don't need this in order to live a great life. That's not it. But now, though, I was curious, though, how can you be a match to that? How can you be a match to that? Because what this is about is the feeling is so beautiful. And I kind of knew this too from, again, from Sid's teaching. He says, your wisdom is in a beautiful feeling. Well, I got one. I got one right here. Right? So your wisdom's in a beautiful feeling. So I thought, this feeling will guide. This feeling will guide all the way there. If I can be more committed to the feeling than I am to that damn house, if I could just be committed to the feeling more than I am to that house, that's the key, because that
Mm.
feeling will lead. Because here's the deal, whether it's this house or another house, if it's this feeling, this is the feeling that will manifest. And I don't know if I got it right as far as this had to be the house, or maybe this house was just trying to show me what this feeling is. So
Mm.
who cares? The point is, if it's this feeling, I know it's going to be an expression of something beautiful. So that was then the journey. The journey was, how do you keep guiding by the feeling? And it was interesting because it just totally, the way I composed myself, the words, the actions, the way I'm going to say I led the journey to allow that feeling, that thought to become a thing.
Mhm.
And so what I mean by that are things like, we indicate to our agents we're very interested, the whole bit. And then, then they, this conversation going back, well, we'll go at them like this, and that we'll show the market value is not whatever. Yeah. And I could feel like, hang on a second, we're not doing that. That this house is beautiful. That I was saying crazy things like, honestly, I was saying crazy things like, the the they built this house and renovated this house for us. They are not our enemy. They are not
Mm.
an opponent here. It was literally, I was so clear. This was, wow, this was all put together for me. So weird to even say it, but it was just the truth, right? Because some changes that were made and how it was done, not everything. I mean, there's things you got to, but some things you go, oh my gosh, like who would do this in this way? It must have been done for me. It's like and so I was very sensitive to, no, we don't talk about them like that. and and I don't want to be stealing the house. How can I get it? Right? That's not that's not a beautiful feeling. I'll tell you what inspired me more. I want to be one who could just pay for that house. I want to be one who could overpay for that house. Now that's interesting to me.
Mhm.
No idea what it looks like, but I would like that.
Mm.
Right. So then, but the feeling was better one way than another way. And how do I give that more airtime and be open to what does that mean to sit in that feeling?
Mhm.
And that would lead to thriving and expansion. So this is a bit of how this journey went, and there was all kinds of stuff in between and drama and all kinds of interesting things, because you know we would be bored if we just thought of something and had it, right? Like, so it was instead a ton of learning, and my I'd say greatest learning around, you know practically speaking, what do all these teachings actually mean, right?
Mm. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I'm sure you could unpack that for weeks.
There's a lot in it,
Yeah.
tons in it. Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I just want our listeners to really hear what you're saying about following the beautiful feeling. And that what I really heard was that that was your guidepost, that was the thing that you made sure to check in with, I guess, regularly and make sure that it was leading you down the right path.
yes. The feeling, the feeling is indicating what you're thinking.
Mhm.
So the feeling is indicating the degree of wisdom in your thinking or nonsense in your thinking. That's what the feeling is indicating. So um, your feeling is either in harmony with something, I'll say in a minute, or disharmony with it. That's what you're feeling. What the feeling is your extent of harmony or disharmony with something. What are we saying the something is? The something is who you really are, your true nature, and the nature of reality. That is really truth. There is who you really are, your true nature, and the nature of reality. When you think in a way that's true, it will feel good. When you think in a way that's harmony with the truth of who you are, it will feel good. When you think in a way that isn't true, it's less true. You will feel less good. And so, and Sydney Banks said, your wisdom is only, he didn't say a little bit of it. He said, your wisdom is only in a positive feeling. Your wisdom is only in a beautiful feeling. Why is that? The source within you, the creator of which you are an expression, this consciousness, this energy of all things of which you are an expression, that energy is a very high frequency, high vibrational energy. Human beings would refer to this energy as love, peace, joy, bliss, abundance, empowerment. They would clarity. They would use words like this to describe what this pure source energy, essence that expresses as all things. That's the highest energy within you. That's the highest truth of you. You express that uniquely. And of course, your expression of that is not all that you are. Your expression of this allness is less than it. So there's a deviation to begin with, right? So you are not who you think you are, right? So who you think you are is but a fraction of the truth of you, right? And so I like to say in Living Miraculously, you may have heard it in my programs, I'll often say, you are far more than you think, and forever shall be far more than you think. You cannot think all that you are. It's not possible. So who you really are is beyond your thinking, beyond anything you can believe. So, but the fact is you are thinking, and all that means is you are limiting. Of course you are, you have to. Because if you were all that is, you would disappear into nothing, right? So you all you are is thinking, which is limiting, but that's not a bad thing. That's what experience and existence and creation is an aspect, an expression of the all. So that's what you are. We're one big walking limitation. That's fine. It's not a problem. We can enjoy all kinds of aspects of all that we are. So you do that, but as you think, part of what you're doing is you are expressing all that is uniquely. But as a result, there is a desire within you, a feeling, a desire, an impulse to be who you really are. Now look at the dilemma in this. You're a speck of all, and within there's a knowing of all that you are. It's the most beautiful design. So within you is an impulse to be who you really are. How do you be who you really are? Number one, you're already that, but it's from the perspective, of course, you're already that. That's the only thing that's actually conscious. But from a focused perspective, as the speck that is you, Sydney Bank called a microscopic aspect of the energy of all things. From a focus as that, the desire is to be what you are through that. So all that is an eternal becoming, expansion, expressing more of itself. This is such a paradox because you say, well, all that is all that is. So how would you say it's expanding? Only one way it can expand, and that is to express more of itself from within itself. From within itself, from every aspect of itself, like you and I. As you and I expand and thrive and become and be more of who we really are, all that is more of all that it is. Right? Is that not the
Mhm.
most beautiful thing? That's
Mhm.
the impulse you feel. And this is where Sidney Banks said, he said, there is only one will, and that is the will of God. So he spoke of free will, and we have free will and whatever. And he said that too. This is such a paradox. Everything's a paradox. So he goes, you have free will. You can think for yourself. It's all free will. And then he says, but there is only one will, and that is the will of God. Sid, what are you saying? You're confusing me. What's this mean? Well, what it means is the only force in the universe. In Star Wars, they called it the Force. The only will in the universe is the will of the all, the of consciousness to know and experience itself in all the ways that it can.
Mm.
So that is the only will there is, which is why we also, if you've heard, of course, we've all heard, know thyself, because that's all there is.
Mm.
We're here, the only thing driving, the only thing wanting is to know thyself. And that know thyself is from all that is to know itself. I mean, consciousness is aware, and aware of what? Aware of itself. There's nothing else to be aware of. So
Right.
So it's an energy of all things. That means there are no things other than it, right? So, and that is consciousness. That is one principle, conscious. And so it is aware of itself. And then what that implies, it is aware of itself and every aspect of itself. And so the whole energy or movement is into a greater and greater and greater knowing of itself. You could say a deeper and deeper and deeper knowing of itself, or you could say it the other way in an expansion into more and more knowing of what it is. And the knowing is expressed and experienced. So it only knows what it experiences, and it experiences through you and me and through 8 billion others and plants, animals, trees, minerals, and other planets and all that. Like, so it's all consciousness. And yeah, so
Wow.
that was
Oh,
a bit out there.
that was lovely. Thank you so much. Yeah, my eggs feel a little scrambled. I had a guest who used that expression the other day. I love it. But that was amazing. So we're just about out of time. I wanted to ask you, is there anything you'd like to share that we haven't touched on yet today?
Oh, we all make too much of all of this. This is an Abraham Hicks quote.
Okay.
We all make too much of all of this. Life is supposed to be fun. The purpose of life is joy. Sid got to that when he said, we just stop talking about all this stuff and go live life.
Hmm.
Right? So, so you don't need to study this. You don't need to take courses in this, because the way it all works is your own life is actually the only teacher you can have.
Mm.
And Abraham Hicks says that they say words don't teach. It's odd we use so many. They say words don't teach. Only your own life experience can teach you. The reason words don't teach is people have listened to this podcast and I've used a lot of words. Well, the only thing you can do with that is believe me or don't believe me. None of it makes a difference. Whether you believe me or don't believe me, it makes no difference. These words don't teach anyone. These words point to something, but they don't teach anything. So your own life, though, will show you the laws of the universe. Your own life will demonstrate to you by your own direct experience who you really are, your true nature and the nature of reality. And so, and how you'll know that that's true, how you'll know that you've discovered is, what happens in this is I say a bunch of stuff and you listen, but there's some things that I say And someone listening goes, oh, yeah, that's true. And all that. So it's not what I said, right? And Sid said this too. He's like, I can't share, this with you. You would have to see it from within you. So, I chatter away, I say a bunch of stuff, and then someone goes, oh, yeah, that's true. Well, what that means is that you heard something there. Better way of saying it, you interpreted something, you thought something, and that thought resonated within you as true. That's your wisdom. Don't blame me. Right? So that's your wisdom that you just heard. And it's true. It like was clear to you. Right. So that's what you know, I'd leave people with. It's like, relax. There's nothing serious going on, and you're fine on your own. Just live your life. It'll teach you everything. And so what? As an eternal being, what difference does it make? Have fun with this. It never ends.
Right.
So,
Yes. Oh, lovely. That's a great thought to wind up with. So, Dominic, where can we find out more about you and your work?
so if you my name, DominicScaffidi.com.
Mhm.
So that's the website that will link you everywhere. It'll give you a link to my Facebook group, which is called Ask and It Is Given, How Thoughts Become Things. Very great Facebook group. It's where I spend the most time on Facebook, is in that Facebook group. Invite you to join. At my website, you'll see a ton of resources, free webinars, and all kinds of recordings and stuff that are available. I share lots of stuff. More is coming. You can tell I have a lot to say. You YouTube channel, again with my name. So those places, and again from my website, they'll link all over to those. And then yeah, once you get to know me, I always recommend check out that stuff that's free. You'll know whether you resonate or don't. And once you do, you may consider, and they're not necessary or needed, you may consider group programs. I do offer group programs like Living Miraculously, which I do with Grace Kelly, a colleague of mine, and other ones that I do as well. And so those group programs are ways that I do. And then a few people I work with one-to-one in that kind of coaching. But there's, that is generally not something that most people are engaged with. So it's more of the group and those types of things. So yeah,
Great. Okay. Well, I will put links in the show notes for sure to all of
thank you.
that. Yeah. Well, Dominic, thank you so much for being with me here today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed our conversation and this exploration. Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure. Take care.
All right. See you, Alexandra.
Bye.
Bye.